waiting to go live, I think. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, a very good evening to all our viewers today and who will be watching us later. So, this is another installment of the HWC live stream that we have been conducting over the last 2 months since all of us have been in lockdown during this global pandemic. And today, of course, we have with us Mr. Darshan Dudhoria, who is one of the co-owners of a heritage hotel in Azimganj in Murshidabad, which is called the Bari Kothi. So, a very good evening and welcome, Darshan. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, if you could just maybe give everybody an introduction about yourself and a little bit about the property, then maybe we can start off on that.
Right. Anmol, thanks a lot for having me, first of all. Always encouraging to share the madness that is going on in our lives for the last 5 years. A quick introduction to give perspective. We essentially, I'm the seventh generation to my greatest grandfather, Rai Bahadur Budh Singh Dudhoria, who in fact created all the wealth for our family. And this is a story that sort of goes back to mid 17, early 1700s. So I don't know if you have that perspective, and we'll get into that detail if that interests you.
Yeah.
But Murshidabad contributed 5% of the GDP of the world in those time period of about mid 1700s. So around this time, these handful of maybe 50 odd families or maybe 100 odd families across in the region were who moved from Rajasthan, which is
Yeah.
Budh Singh Dadaji's grandfather who moved in there, and they essentially created a lot of wealth for not only our family but for the region. And what our forefathers ended up doing was they were involved in a lot of community building work. So right from religious activities to philanthropic activities towards setting up dispensaries. So they act as quasi governments in terms of
Yeah.
holding the society together, changing the social culture. Parda system, to question parda system, the role of women in our society, to question all of that. So because of that, obviously they got these titles of Raja, Rai Bahadur,
Yeah.
etc., and all, not one family but multiple families of that region. And because of
Yes.
which today we are to be honest, just eating out of that goodwill that they've left behind for us. And this is the story at Bari Kothi. For you to say a co-owner of Bari Kothi is I say a um, crazy man for Bari Kothi, because it was just a mad project that's just gone wilder and
Yes.
wilder. So our palace was locked down for a period of about 70 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was recently, in the last 5 years, we got a even madder architect from Canada who came
Yeah.
in, and he's a restoration specialist. One thing led to the other. And what we have now is Murshidabad's first completely restored luxury heritage hotel. So that's Bari
Yeah.
Kothi as an introduction for you.
Yeah. So, a couple of very interesting points that you mentioned from, of course, your introduction is one of them is you mentioned that a lot of these families and a lot of members of the families were given these certain titles. So, of course, the entire community that came in from Rajasthan was given the title of Sheherwali. So, would you like to maybe talk a little bit about what that title really means and what it kind of entails?
Right. So Sherwali essentially was not a title particularly given. Sherwali is the name of a community. And if I literally translate that, Sheher means city and Wali
Yeah.
means dweller. So it's essentially city dwellers. So we got this. The community had this name, and we in fact migrated from Rajasthan. And what's interesting about our community, which is Sherwali, a fast dying, very small community now, is the influences of a variety of cultures, which makes us extremely unique. So herein we moved from Rajasthan. So a lot of our great grandfather portraits are just a wonderful story by itself. So you've got people wearing a European hat. You're possibly holding a British walking stick. You're wearing a Bengali dhuti, and along with that, you're wearing a Rajasthani kurta. So you're at heart a Rajasthani. You're living in Bengal, and you're adopting to those cultural
Yes.
ways. You're working with the British, and that's who you inspire to be. And along with that, you are ruled by a Mughal king. Now
Yeah.
that entire Mughal influence comes in. So all of that put together created this uniqueness of our community, which now reflects not only in our attire but our lifestyle, our food, our cuisine is world famous now. If I don't exaggerate that word, we you can go to ITC in Calcutta, the new Royal Bengal, and you'll be you could ask for a Sherwali thali, and they'll be happy to serve you that. And we are working with them to try and get Sherwali food to every ITC hotel across the country. So we are clamoring to save this little community,
Yes.
and probably now we've 50 active families, and we all are trying together to save this.
Wow, I think that's absolutely wonderful because, as you mentioned, it's basically a confluence of different cultures coming together, and that is what made up one community. And I think I can almost say that every community in West Bengal, for that matter, has these different influences coming in, from different backgrounds, simply because West Bengal was really the center at one point of time. So, in terms of, the languages, the different dialects, the kind of cuisine, even the buildings, the architecture that you see in most of the heritage buildings, they're all basically an amalgamation of, a lot of different styles. And I think that's really what makes West Bengal very different. And I think it's a wonderful initiative that you all have chosen, to bring back a piece of your legacy in restoring the Bari Khoti. As you mentioned, that it had been locked up for about 70 years. So what really led to you all kind of coming up with this project? I mean, what was the catalyst behind the adaptive reuse, or the conversion of the ancestral home into a hotel?
Okay, so when we, I'll take the liberty of going a little technical. Feel free
Yeah.
to sort of stop me in. Essentially, the genesis of every project is obviously emotions. So for
Yes.
us, it was primarily I've got a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, and the whole idea was to try and show her what Bari Kothi is. And our fear was everything would fall onto the ground until she's old enough to appreciate what our forefathers have done and left
Yeah.
for us. So having said that, it was a humble thought, and as I said, starting from a humble emotion. And once we started working on the project, we truly started understanding the sheer need that the project had in terms of saving it. B,
Yeah.
what interestingly changed the entire game for us is, I don't know if you're aware, but from Calcutta all the way till Murshidabad, there are these beautiful luxury river cruises that ply,
Yes.
and they have multiple European guests coming in from different parts. So now we happen to know one of them, and Raj Singh uncle, who was ever gracious, and he went ahead and he said that I'm getting my guests onto Bari Kothi. We'll see how it goes. And for us, it was like, we were very shy. You're getting your guests from Europe into our
Yeah.
dilapidated palace. There's nothing to see in here. And we literally hid everything that was broken. And there's these bunch of 30, 40 odd people walked in, and they had literally a homemade meal. We had toru ka sabji, we had kari, and along with that we had puri. So something as simple and humble as that was served, and the European guests were absolutely blown over with just eating that fusion and those real taste buds that had come in, and everything that we were trying to hide, which were ruins in our minds, got termed as romantic ruins. And
Yeah.
that sort of changed our entire perspective of how we looked at our own heritage. So
Yeah.
heritage, to me, that word didn't exist until 5 6 years back. For us, it was a beautiful story that only possibly me and my family would be interested to go over for dinner.
Yes.
So that became these small emotions got together, and then we realized that, okay, fine, how do we do the restoration? We started the restoration. So the biggest, and I'm going slightly technical, and stop me please
Yeah. Yeah.
if
Sure.
it's
No
not
problem. Yeah.
for this particular conversation if it's out of context. But we essentially, what we realized is, in any old house, the primary two factors, two things that sort of decide the fate of restoration, or how you want to touch the property in terms of getting it back to its real shape, is
Yeah.
the roof and the floor. So those
Yeah.
are the two sort of tests that sort of for me is the greatest test for a falling building. So for us, the work started from there. So we did some very interesting, unique new techniques. We couldn't get in big cranes. We couldn't get in big technical equipments in this remote part of Bengal. So everything had to be done by farmers. Everything had to be done by these unskilled labor.
Yeah.
So we just had to continuously innovate. There would be days where we would have 100 people working on site, but the screws that were needed, the small things that were needed, were from across the river, from Azimganj and Jiaganj. So then that wasn't there, and then we would just stay put for 3 hours because the boat had to go across the river, go
Yeah.
to the market, buy those little small things, again
Yeah.
do that. So those were the interesting elements of the project, and that's what made it unique. And you had to be absolute blind mad to sort of go ahead and pursue that. But however, we were very clear from the start that we would not do this one push, give it one push, get it back into a form where it could stay in itself.
Okay, I think there has been a slight internet connectivity issue. We will just wait a couple of seconds to see if we can get Darshan to reconnect again. All right, I think there has been,
Anyway, so
yeah, he's back.
to be our particular generation comes in, does this entire restoration exercise, spends a lot of money, and then we see all of it just crumble onto the ground 30 years later. And you don't know what my daughters would do, or what my kids would do. So we were very sure that if we could
Of
create this
course.
into a sustainable project, if we could just do this one push, give it one push, get it back into a form where it could save itself, it could create for itself, it was more sustainable. So that became one of our core values, which defined the project. So basis that we went ahead and we
Yes.
thought that, what could we make it? Could we make it into a cultural center? Could we make it into a museum? Could we make it into any form of a platform where society is engaged? And we realized that a hotel is too strong a word, homestay is too loose a word, but somewhere in
Yeah.
between, how do we make it something where people can experience? So that's where the entire concept of opening the doors for Bari Kothi came in. And today we are very proud about the fact that we don't serve any non-vegetarian food. We serve purely vegetarian food. Uh, Most of our meals are Sheherwali meals, and we've had 99% of our guests are international guests, from Europe, from America, from Australia, and not one of them has complained that the food was something that I wish we had our bacon, or I wish I had something
Yeah.
that we usually eat. So the story is so strong, so powerful, that it just sort of consumes you. And my greatest joke and my greatest sort of line to share is that if you spend one night at Bari Kothi, something takes over you. And that is the most powerful element that we could restore. The soul of Bari Koti has been
Yeah.
restored, and that for us is the greatest pride.
Yeah, I think it's as you mentioned, a hotel or a homestay is not particularly the right word, which you of course could use to describe the property, but it's more of an experience. So it's more of an immersive experience for people to actually come in and partake in a lifestyle or in an era which has long gone away, and not only for the people coming to visit, but as you said, for your own children, for your own grandchildren in the future, and kind of for them to see the legacy that their family had built on. So I think that is very interesting. And also, if I may just ask, you did mention what was the catalyst behind, the setting up of the property. But was there any particular example that you looked at? Because unfortunately, in Eastern India, we don't really have a lot of good examples of adaptive reuse, or restoration or conservation of a property into some sort of a cultural experience. It's more of, say, where your family hails from. Say Rajasthan is way ahead, I would say, compared to the rest of India in that respect. So, was there any sort of an example that you were looking at, that maybe you saw one or you visited one property, not only in India, maybe any other part of the world, where you had this sort of an experience that you maybe thought that, okay, I want to emulate this? Was there anything like that?
Okay, so, right. So, Anmol, I believe you're an architect, and
Yes.
no better person than you. Well, you've been to Murshidabad.
Yes.
There are European palaces there. You've got Greek and Roman architecture there. Where do I get that? When you emulate, or when you take one particular project as a yardstick, you can only do possibly if there are a lot of similarity between your project and projects
Yeah.
of others. For us, it wasn't just saving the building. For us, and heritage to me is not just a tangible asset; it's an intangible
Yeah.
asset also. And so for
Yes.
us, it was the primary goal of the project was to restore not just the tangibles but the intangibles. For example, your foundation, your association, you guys are doing a fantastic job, and I mentioned to you just before we started the conversation, I ended up meeting Chelsea and Todagato, and it
Yes.
was, the first thing I told them was just literally this: that please come, please interact with. We are so proud about the fact that literally every person who is a part of Bari Kothi team, interacting with guests, are all from
Yes.
the local community. So we are talking about unskilled farmers now who are trained chefs, trained housekeeping staff. They're taking care of guests at every element. They've become hosts now. Some of them have become guides. So it is for us. It was restoring the entire ecosystem, a
Yes.
part of which your foundation is doing. So for me, there was no literal point. Yes, we were deeply inspired by multiple projects. We, of course, Rajbari Bawali, the work they've done is absolutely commendable. Glenburn Penthouse, the work they've done for Bengal. I speak for East. What they've done is
Yes.
amazing. What there are, I wouldn't say similar, but UNESCO Restoration Award-winning project in Delhi. Uh, Dharampura, they've again done fantastic work of restoration. So those were key markers, but we really couldn't get around emulating any one model because
Yeah.
our situation was extremely unique. We had these
Yeah.
cultural assets that we had to put into use. We had to identify all of them. So everything we just kept doing. So now we've got these beautiful heritage walks. We've got these beautiful village walks. Now, how do you copy anyone to? Yes, of
Yeah.
course, village walk is a very established concept down south. A lot of other people do this, but that's not the end of it. But how do you
Yeah.
curate those? So I think we just took it one by one, a step at a time. And for us, it was just having a good time. And that, I think, prima facie, that key, and being a professional yourself, you'll understand you can only work 18 hours a day if you are
Yes.
not only driven by passion. Of course, you had to be, which my architect was, but you just had to be having a fantastic time, and we loved every part of it. And that's how
I
sort
could.
of Bari Kothi came to be.
Yeah. So I think the most important takeaway from what you just mentioned is the involvement of the local community, because I think that is something that most of these projects should be based out of, simply giving back to the community that
Hmm.
has actually grown up around these spaces. Because of course, for most of the people who do have ancestral properties, they usually tend to leave those properties and move to more urban areas. But there is an entire community that has actually come up around that property, and although it might not be theirs, they still identify with it. They still have that sort of connection. So even when we talk about conservation theories and all of that, it's community participation is key. And I think that's what makes the Bari Koti stand out, is because y'all almost champion that. Like you mentioned, that y'all took on unskilled labor to actually work on the project. Even all your staff, all of them are from the local community itself. So how did you all go about that? I mean, how do you all arrange that training program for them, for the laborers? I mean, who were they trained by? Or how did that go about, basically?
So for us, we were very clear that we didn't want to. We wanted to, as I said, we restored the soul of Bari Kothi, and we wanted to display that soul of Bari Kothi. So we didn't want to be a Rajasthan. We didn't want to be a fancy hotel down south. We didn't want to be any of the leading city hotels. So it had to be trained fully by us. So family members, along with an architect. So when you, as an architect, look at a old building, you're possibly thinking of how to repair the walls. But our architect, Dr. Chandra, he went ahead, and for him it was, how do I convert this particular farmer into a carpenter? So he's thinking, and then he's thinking, okay, fine, once he's done with carpentry, this is the skill set I'm seeing in him. How can I convert him into maybe a boatman? And how can I convert him into a guide? Or this particular girl speaks so well. So we've had numerous examples. There have been people who've literally, I distinctly remember this story about maybe 3.5, 4 years back. Um, Someone came up and they said that, "Yeah, have you met this particular girl?" And who was working on our site for maybe about 3 odd months. And I said, to speak to her. And I said, please, why not? And this girl walks up and she speaks to me in fluent English. And I'm trying my best to speak Bangla. And I'm speaking to her in Bengal. And she's replying to me in English. And I had to ask her, I'm like, are you studying? What are you doing? She's like, yeah, second year BA political science. And I got a shock of my life. And I said that, well, you're picking up bricks here. She said, yeah, I have to feed my family. And we immediately moved her into our purchase department, and she started doing her audits and all of that. So these were the kind of people. These are, when people talk about saving heritage, people, these are all fancy talks where people are across the world sitting in different places talking about, creating funds and doing this and that.
Yes.
This is the other end of it. This is where the real life is. If you want to help, you got to come and get your hands
Yes.
dirty here. And once you do that, I'm a corporate lawyer by profession. I've got into my family scheme of things, and we are into silk. And I don't understand these social norms, and I don't understand anything beyond an Excel. And here I was exposed 5 years back to real people in the villages, real life stories. It's changed me as an individual completely. And for me, that is my restoration. And I don't consider myself heritage, but that's my restoration. And that's what projects of this magnitude change,
Yeah.
because it's very difficult to narrate that story because it's real. And I would request everyone listening into, if you truly feel for heritage, if you truly feel, and heritage doesn't involve fancy palaces. It is your mother, your great grandmother's recipe, your grandmother's recipe. Every household has a secret grandmother's recipe.
Mm.
That is heritage for you. And every 18th April, we celebrate Heritage Day, talking about what we have actually done for heritage, what we've actually done to save our heritage. It could be the smallest thing. I don't care if you judge me or if you don't judge me, but the fact is, I've saved. So we are strong doers. We believe in trying to get the wheel ahead. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone does good, bad things. But this is what we strongly, that's our ethos.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely wonderful. As you mentioned, that heritage is not just pertaining to one particular structure or something like that. It's a lot, and as you also spoke about before, intangible and tangible. I think a lot of people usually only identify with the tangible aspects of heritage, and they don't really identify with the more cultural aspects, like, say, as you were mentioning, the cuisine, the basic the culture that you have inculcated in your family and around in that entire region and all of that. So I think that's great that at Bari Koti you'll showcase an entire, it's not just a property, it's more of an experience. And
Mhm.
I think that's absolutely wonderful and a very commendable job on your behalf. Now, something else that I would like to speak about is, I think the biggest reason why, I mean, I wouldn't say the biggest, but one of the main reasons why a lot of families are hesitant to go about with these sort of projects is because, of course, they entail a large amount of funds, and which a lot of these families don't have readily at their disposal. And not just funds, but time and expertise and all of that as well. So, and unfortunately, with the West Bengal government, not a lot is really given within the heritage sector. So, I mean, do you think that is a hindrance, or do you think it's just a hindrance of not having enough examples of, people actually not realizing that this can lead to something great, as y'all have done with the Bari Koti? So, what do you think is really stopping West Bengal from, kind of enriching its landscape with more of these sort of cultural experiences and all of that?
Right. So Anmol, essentially, I'll be absolutely honest with you. Maybe about 3 years back, we've had the good fortune of for various kinds of discussions leading to what to do to save your heritage, etc., etc. And at that point in time, about 3 years back, my biggest question for people who would be 20 years my senior in terms of work, in terms of age, in terms of experience. And I would always be like, how are people getting the money to do this? The
Yeah.
math is not adding up. How does that work? Where do I get the money? I could do A, B, C, D things. And I promised you, it was the possibly the biggest thing. And everyone who was on the other end who'd completed the project just had fancy lines to give me. Or you bootstrap a project and you see how it goes. Or they would go ahead and say that, hey, you know what, itna, you don't need to spend so much of money. You can do it with just 10 lakhs. I got one karigar from there.
Yeah.
He came at such a. I have tried every trick that the book could offer. It Nothing works. Nothing works. You have to struggle it out.
Yeah.
You have to go through the entire curves. You have to figure. You have to cut costs. And once it's a cliched saying, but once your destination is ready and you're sort of on that path, everything just keeps coming your way and your project just stands. And that's the honest truth. There is no way that can be particularly written or I don't know which part of Calcutta you're in, but a beautiful storm is out there at least,
Cycling.
which is attacked.
Yes.
Yes, and I could. It's just quite beautiful there. Anyway, so on the note of storm, so what we've been able to again establish, and what we'd like to establish, is we the nickname for our project was Project Priceless, and one of the prime things that we wanted to do in Project Priceless was have this as one project where people could come on to us. So fortunately, unfortunately, the government is not a part of the greatest scheme of things. They have other priorities, which is very well. We can have a whole 2-hour debate on that
Yeah.
and whether the government should be a part of this or not. However, they are not at this stage. So while they are not actively involved, what can we do? As Bari Kothi, what we've tried to do is we've tried to set up a foundation which is called HHH, Triple H, where the whole concept is if you have anything which is heritage to you,
Yeah.
come to us and we will do our best to save that for you. So what we try and do, and what we try and do is say, you've got this really dilapidated palace in Mushidabad, and you don't know how to get the money, you don't know how to get the artisans, you don't know how to get the labor force to, how do I rectify this? Shall I use Chuna Sulki back again? Or shall I use cement? Shall I introduce steel? What do I do? So all of those little things, I lost probably 60% of my hair in the last 5 years, and I've donated to Project Bari Kothi. So hence we realized that this cannot die. So all of this knowledge has been documented, and we like to put all of them to use to create what we have now.
Yeah. So I think that's very interesting because, of course, in Murshidabad, Azimganj, and Jiaganj, there are a lot of other, say, ancestral homes and palaces as well, and also a lot belonging to other Sheherwali families. So, do you see, do you think you have managed to inspire some of the other families to actually reuse their properties? Maybe not opening up as or venturing into the hospitality business, but just, opening up their private space for everybody else to kind of come and be a part of that experience. So, yeah.
To be honest, a lot of people now in Mushidabad are super excited. Band kar disko. A lot of people are super excited because everyone's obviously trying to see Nishant. Everyone is trying to see the outcome of Bari Kothi project. A lot of people have witnessed it. They felt it. They see a huge potential in it. Of course, typically what we got extremely lucky with any old house, you have multiple owners and you have multiple decision makers.
Yes.
We were very fortunate that we could overcome that particular barrier, because to me, finance is not a big barrier. To me, finding the artisans, how the tech, the know-how, etc., that isn't a big barrier. The first barrier is getting decision makers, which are
Yes.
limited in number. Pura usko disconnect karna hai. Being limited in number, who would go ahead and be able to take the project, because typically a lot of cooks will spoil the broth, which we were very
Yeah.
lucky with. So yes, there is my more than a few cousins of mine are extremely excited, are in conversations. We are working on different models. Everyone has their own issues. We had our own issues. We are all trying to do it. But my ultimate goal is in 5 years, you will see we've got 15 suites. My goal is in 5 years to have 100 suites in Murshidabad, in Azimganj, catering to the outside world. Once we've been able to do that, that's the time we would have known that we've been able to fully establish not the former glory, because that's never going to happen. We are talking about the glory of Jagat Seth, and I like to, Anmol, mention this to you. Jagat Seth, one of the my great grandmother was the great granddaughter of the Jagat Seth sort of uh, family. And
Yes.
Jagat Seth, his name is Jagat Universal Seth Banker.
Yeah.
Universal Banker. There are history books and this notable historian, British historian, who has gone ahead and put on record that he possibly was the richest man in the world. So we are talking about restoring legacy. Where how do I do that?
Yeah.
You've got documents which shows that more than £1 million having been loaned to the British government. Uh, I can never restore that legacy in my lifetime. But so now I think the word restoration, legacy, opulent has changed. Now for me, the legacy that we'd be leaving behind is to be able to restore the community, to be able
Yeah.
to, get the ecosystem, fire up the ecosystem again. So
Yeah.
maybe 2 generations later, they'll be able to truly reap the benefits. I know my generation definitely, and the generation after, for us, it will be just a beautiful project that will be a huge burden onto our shoulders. We understand that completely, because although the idea for us was to give this, show this to my daughter, but I think now I'm leaving behind something extremely uh, uh, um, monstrous in size for her. So I think it'll take maybe 2 generations for them to reap the benefits. But we've got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So let's see. We'll have definitely. I promise you, 5 years, 100 suites. We've got the government excited. The earlier the tourism department would never speak to us. Would not know have any interest. But now I can't. I don't know if I have the liberty to share details of that. But there's a beautiful property in Kant. We'll probably get that going. That could be converted into a 50-room, 60-room property. So we are very excited about that too. So let's see.
I think that's wonderful. The future definitely looks great from what you have just shared with us. And I think also what this contributes to is because unfortunately, what we witnessed when we were in Mushidabad is that the public infrastructure is not very well put in place. And something as simple
Right.
as a good hotel or a good guest house to stay in is very hard to come by. So I think what this does is, the setting up of all of these properties and all of that, it of course brings in a lot more attraction and a lot more eyes on this area, and then in that sense, you will see that infrastructure develops, because once you do get in a lot more people coming in, they have to develop the roads. You will see maybe public restrooms coming up, and just better management of heritage sites which are present in Mushidabad, and by quite a large number, I must say. So I think in that sense, with the future looks great for that region, because of course that is one of,
I'm
I
just
would say,
interrupting. I'm just interrupting
yeah,
you once. Sorry, but when you said that, and I must please, whoever's listening, everyone's heard about the Palace of Thousand Doors. Everyone's
yeah,
heard about Katra Masjid. How many people have heard about Futi Masjid?
yeah,
This is the legend goes that this mosque was built in one day, and you'll be astonished if at all it is true. You'll just be astonished. So the assets that are there. are
Yes.
just humongous. So we, in fact, I'm fortunate enough to be a part of this organization called the Murshidabad Heritage Development Society.
Hmm.
So we as a society, so our president is Mr. Pradeep Chopra, our vice president Mr. Sandeep Nolakar, two flag bearers to work, to push and work with the government to get this infrastructure that you speak of. How can we get that going? Because
Yeah.
it's not only about so whenever we go, I've done multiple roadshows in Europe, in different parts of India. We try not to talk about Bari Kothi, because Bari Kothi is a very small part of the entire gamut of things. It's Murshidabad. We are talking about
Yeah.
something that UNESCO is looking at. We are trying to push and try and get that UNESCO tag for the terracotta temples. The terracotta,
Yes.
the Rani Bhavani terracotta temple, which I'm sure Anmol you would have seen,
Yes.
on the banks of the Ganges. I think one of the most beautiful sites for me. But I don't know how many people know the story of Rani
No,
Bhavani.
of course.
That to me
Yeah.
is real heritage. She wanted to make this into Kashiganj, which is a Varanasi. She promised Lord Shiva she'd make 108 temples. Apparently, the story goes that she made only 107, and then the wrath of gods unleashed upon Azimganj and Jiaganj. Just imagine listening to these stories when you are on these country boats made of bamboo, sipping on local tea, and just floating on the Ganges with no sound hitting your ear. That to me is a whole different experience that you don't get in any part of easily any part of India.
Yeah, I think that's very inspiring when you said that you're not just looking at the property as a standalone property, but you're looking at the entire region. You're looking at maybe even rebranding Murshidabad, because as you mentioned, nobody knows it past, say, the Katra Masjid or the Hazar Duari Palace, and maybe in those confines itself. But nobody really kind of takes the time to really delve into and discover what Murshidabad really has to offer. So now I think we can just take a couple of minutes to talk about Bari Koti in detail, and what are the different spaces that Bari Koti offers, what are the experiences that it offers, and maybe you can get a start on that.
Okay, so at Bari Koti, our primary goal, as I mentioned, is to make you feel the Sheherwali way of life. That's the sort of one of the core values that we've started with.
Yeah.
So what we try and do is we don't our I don't want to use a commercial word, our tagline, but one of our lines that we use in our marketing documents. So that's a beautiful thunder, as I said.
Yes.
Yeah. So
It
so
almost started.
essentially we
Yeah.
I know. That was a good
Yeah.
reaction, I think. So uh, the the tagline that we use in our marketing documents is we do not sell rooms, we create experiences. So everything around. So if someone comes and says we want to just what's your bed and breakfast rate, so we don't have any bed and breakfast rates. For us it's a whole experience. So from the time you come to Azimganj till the time you leave Azimganj, we would like to take care of you end to end. So that means boat rides. That means we don't get English speaking guides from Calcutta. We use Bengali guides. We have our boys and girls translating it for the guests. Imagine the pride that sets upon me, and this is something that one of our team members said. So earlier they were extremely scared to speak to guests, and rightfully so. And then there came a time where they would just be, and I remember asking a lot of them, "Do you know English?" And they said, "No, we don't know English." And suddenly, 6 months later, or a year later, they were speaking broken English. And in just one of these, team interaction sessions, and we were just internally discussing, and she said, hey, "You know what? These French guests that had come, they also can't speak in English. They're also speaking broken English. Why can't we speak broken English?" And that for me is the experience that the guests are looking for. So
Yeah.
our pride is, so we've what we've done is we've broken our experiences into three buckets. One is a textile based experience, one is a culture based experience, and one is a heritage based experience. So basis these three interest buckets, we profile our guests, basis which we go ahead and we talk about customizing itinerary. Every itinerary is curated for that particular guest after understanding what their interests are. We've got, of course, our signature itinerary, which is I see it all. That particular itinerary will make you experience every bit of those buckets. We do experiences in Islampur. We do experiences in Tantipara and Jiaganj,
Yeah.
all of that comes together. And of course, we don't stop short there. We understand that someone who's coming from Paris is not going to come to Murshidabad just for 3 nights. They want a 12-night, 13-night itinerary.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? So now we started we've developed a lot of Bengal itineraries where Murshidabad and Bari Kothi is just a 3 night scheme of things.
Yeah.
So we've got three different restaurants where we celebrate different influences of the Sherwali cuisine. We've got a restaurant dedicated to, which is called the Zareen Mahal. Zareen in Urdu essentially means gold. And we celebrate the richness of Jagat Seth, of the Sherwali community. We celebrate the richness of the Sherwali cuisine. So when food comes, it doesn't come in a big thali. So what we've done with the Sherwali thali is we've broken that into different courses. So we've got a 5 course Sherwali meal where you come in and every course is accompanied by a story, a written
Yeah.
story that we give our guests, and of course we narrate that too. So we concentrate. Our greatest focus is on community engagement. Our greatest focus. There's a guest with who wanted to go visit. One of her team members' house, and she because she probably heard that she's got a beautiful goat who's her pet for the longest time, and she wanted to go meet the goat. So we engage in those experiences,
Yeah.
which are real. Our guests when they leave, when they check out, we've had multiple guests who've actually had a tear roll down because that's the kind of experiences that we provide, and that is essentially is Bari Kothi. So for us, I'm sorry, one of the questions that got just one of our team members just showed that on the phone, that what is the difference between restoration and renovation.
Yes. Yeah.
um, I would like to please address that because that just sort of caught my fancy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So
Yeah.
there are various R words, and as an architect, Anmol, you'll appreciate this the most. So there are various R words that come in: reusable, restoration,
Yeah.
renovation, reconstruction,
Yeah.
readaptation. At the end of the day, it's as simple as this. For me, uh, you can restore everything that still has that soul. So, for example, every tangible and intangible can be restored
Yeah.
because you want to see it alive. So till the time the heritage, whatever it is, you can, for example, you have this monument and you restore it to its former glory. It can be dead heritage if it is not usable. If it is not usable,
Yes.
so herein the difference between to me in my naiveness and in my experience of this particular project. Renovation would be refurbishing, sort of I would use the word polishing and just rebranding the particular thing for display. Restoration to me is a much deeper word wherein the walls are intact. So we had 5 structural engineers that visited our place, and they advised us to break down this particular building. So Bari Koti comprises of 5 different blocks,
Okay.
buildings essentially,
Yeah.
and so they advised us to break this into. There's no ways on earth you can save this. The best thing is just get rid of it, just have the ground floor, and you build up. So in the architectural parlance, that would be reconstruction. But we took a
Yes.
call and we said, hey, you know what? We want to save this. So we had to spend double the money, use double the planning, use double the resources rather.
Yeah.
He made foundations deep inside, got steel members introduced all the way ground below, got them to stand up all the way against those walls, tied down with chicken mesh nets, hold that together. So now there's a wall which has just been wrapped around,
Yeah.
held on to. I didn't understand these things, and for any owner who's wondering that how will I ever know this? How it's you're on the job when you start your work, when you finish school, you get on to college, you figure things out on the way.
Yes.
There is no book
Definitely.
which says Dummy's Guide to Going to College.
Yes.
So that to me is because I'm a dummy heritage enthusiast,
Mm.
and we've been able to create something like this, and I'm sure everyone learns on the way.
Yeah, I think it's just the initial thrust, and I think
That's
most of it comes from really the love that you have, to kind of continue that legacy, the love and the passion that you have. So, and I think that honestly, I mean, looking at the success of the Badi Koti project and other such similar projects in West Bengal that have come up in, I can say, about the past 5 years to close to a decade. It's basically you just have to get a start, and it's just the start that is needed. And I think you figure things out on the job, as you mentioned, working on site, you kind of figure out a way for yourself. So I think it's just that initial hesitation that needs to be overcome, and then it can lead to great things. So
And
I have a
Anmol,
question.
Murshidabad,
Yeah,
sorry, I'm
please.
interrupting again, but
Yeah.
Murshidabad, by the Bari Kothi project, has also got this initial thrust. And I'm reiterating this. You wait and see, 5 years, you will have 100 rooms guaranteed. So we've got Nimrana to come in, look at the entire space. We've got a lot of hoteliers who've come in. We've got one of the leading examples of fantastic work is House of MG, Mr. Abhay Mangaldas, great
Mm.
patron to our work. He came and we had the good fortune of having him stay with us for 3 nights. We are trying to get as many people to come in and to be able to create this. So we have to use platforms such as yourself to get the word out there.
Okay, I think there is again a slight disruption, all thanks to the storm that is brewing outside. So I think we can just wait a couple of seconds to see if Darshan can reconnect again. Darshan, can you hear me? Yeah,
Anmol,
I'm
I'm
so
back on.
sorry. We
Yeah.
Yes, we just lost you for a couple of minutes. So I mean,
Right.
if I can
Right.
just request you to just repeat what you were talking
No,
about in the last minute or so.
right. I was just sort of reiterating my point that through your platforms, we have to spread the word of getting other people to join the bandwagon. And we are there. Our foundation, Triple H, is there to help you. H, by the way, Triple H is heritage, hospitality, and humanity. So these are the three elements that we like to cater to through our project, Bari Kothi. So please, I request you to just move on with your question. I interrupted.
Yes. I just have one last question before maybe we can take on questions from all our viewers. So, something that we noticed when we visited Murshidabad is that a lot of these houses have now been converted to museums. And, some spaces have been opened up as museums showcasing the family history. But unfortunately, something that was missing is, the presence of official documents that can actually tell you more than maybe a painting can, or more than an artifact can. And we had the good fortune of visiting the Nashipur Rajbari, and over there we noticed that there were rooms filled with bookshelves to the brim with various documents and books and all of that, but unfortunately not kept in the best state of preservation. So I mean, if I'm pretty sure if someone was to pick that up, it would disintegrate right in their hands. So I mean, do you have you kind of managed to set up maybe a family archive or something? It doesn't necessarily have to be public access, but just something for the family to keep, just as a record for the family, basically. I mean, have you managed to do something like that?
I'm glad you sort of mentioned that because one part of any project such as ours, one is first to save the building, second is to restart the ecosystem, third is to start making it in revenue generating because if
Yes.
guests come, my team keeps getting trained, they get excited, the wheel starts moving. So the third
Yes.
part was that which we've
Yeah.
overcome. But the fourth part for us was to go back into greater detail to start, doing exercises that you mentioned. So let me just first come to the point that why, you won't see a lot of these historical documents, up there for people to see. We've not developed Murshidabad. That ecosystem is not conducive right now
Yes.
for opening up all of these things. We are still scared that no one will maintain. I am still
Yes.
scared. So say
Definitely.
for example, a beautiful a book that we found, which is called the Musnad of Mushidabad. It's a 120-year-old book
Yes.
that we found. The original copy, one of the original copies of it. Now, I am extremely scared. The first time when I saw that lying at Bari Koti, I picked it up, and the first thing I did was move back to Calcutta. Now, herein, we've got our
Yeah.
entire life in Bari Koti, but I moved it. So imagine a person who doesn't have that infrastructure going. So
Yes.
they would fear. So everyone would have that as a very interesting project that we have also started at Mushirabad Heritage Development Society. Is so what I before I go into there, what I do right now is my grandmother who's about 90 years. My father's elder brother, they're all the flag bearers of our family, and they have stories that of course surpass my lifetime. So we are doing all kinds of recordings with them. Every time I sit with them, I just get my phone on and just get it on record mode because you don't know how one story comes out. So we then
Yes.
keep asking that what is that one document, because no one would remember these. You have to dig it out. So there's a
Yes.
continuous process for years to get that out. And then once we have all of those recordings, we are trying to publish books. So at Bari Kothi, what we've done is we are strongly creating content. So this is possibly the eighth book in its prototype, has now been fully developed with different Sherwalis, Nawabs in Bengal, and all these collateral, these assets that we have. All of that is now being reproduced. Coming to absolute original documents, a lot of families have multiple documents with them. It's not going to
Yes.
come onto the limelight easily. Once the ecosystem is ready, you will see it's a matter of time where everything comes in. So we are trying to
Yes.
make a museum wherein all of these family documents and manuscripts and Jagat Seth related documents are all put on display for public access. But we
Yes.
hopefully in about 2 years we should be able to, at Murshidabad Heritage Development Society, be able to create this particular thing. Over there, what we've started to do is we are doing a coffee table book on the Sherwali families, where we are actually getting all those documents out from every family member, sitting with them, interviewing them. iLead is a big part of that project also. So all of us together are trying to get that activity also going. But these are, to save, now when I look back, saving a building is very easy. Starting a
Yes.
hotel is very easy. But to get all these family members put
Yes.
together to get all that information out is possibly a Herculean task.
Yes, I think saving the building is just, baby steps, but baby steps in the right direction. So, as you
Right.
mentioned, it's only going to grow from here. So, as long as you have the foundation which is set and, something for you to grow on, then it just shows you the way moving ahead. Now, I think let me keep this as the last question from my side. Of course,
Right.
everybody is aware that we are in the middle of raging health pandemic, or, raging
Mhm.
global pandemic with the COVID-19. So, how do you see this? Do you see this as impacting the tourism sector, and especially the tourism sector within Murshidabad, or if you would like to speak at a larger level, say with India? Because you did mention that you do get in a lot of foreign arrivals, a lot of foreign tourists. So, do you think that is going to change? Because, of course, people are going to be a little wary about travel. So, I mean, how do you possibly, catch the attention of people living within India or within West Bengal for that matter? I mean, do you have any plans in that
Okay.
respect?
Anmol, we are in deep trouble as the entire industry and the sector. We are in absolute deep trouble. There's no denying that. We don't know what the end to it is. But I strongly start to feel with being involved in multiple other industries and sectors. Travel, for whatever reason, is a very resilient sector, and it is well. I won't use the word easiest, but it can evolve very rapidly. Experience can tweak rapidly. For
Yes.
example, earlier we would go attend these big exhibitions, big travel marts where we end up meeting foreign travel buyers. Now the entire industry has changed. Every maybe twice a week we are, or maybe thrice a week we are having sessions with a lot of international FTOs, essentially are coming on board, and we are introducing Murshidabad to them. I never had that good fortune in the past 1 year to do that. I had that one day in London meeting 15 people. However, now we are ending up meeting so many new people. So I think industry is very rapidly changing. To be honest, I think anyone would be lying if they knew what's going to happen, because no one
Yes.
knows what's going to happen, how long this is going to last, how it's going to recover. I read a book, and there was some prophecy that it's going to quickly go away. And I read another book which said that, oh, it's going to come back in a bigger form in December. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I know one thing for a fact, that we will evolve. So, for example, we have zero guests right now. Uh, Everything's locked up. what do? We are trying to evolve and market ourselves. So we've launched an initiative called Kristi, which is a Bengali word which means nurturing culture. We went ahead and we are now doing a massive program, just letting every foreign operator, a lot of domestic operators across India, let them know about Bengal. This is the best time where everyone's glued onto social media.
Yeah.
Why can't we let them know about Bengal? So we are continuously trying to find new ways to survive, and I think no one's going to shut shop. Everyone's gonna have to face the brunt, and
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. Having said that, we've had the good fortune, and I'm sure a lot of other people have had that in the last 2 months. It's not that queries have died. We've got a few bookings, confirmed bookings, but how that pans out, what happens,
Yes.
the future will only tell us.
Yeah. All right, so that was absolutely wonderful. And on the topic of bookings, I think maybe we can end this by if you can just let our viewers know if they would like an experience at Bari Koti, then how do they go about that booking process?
So you just log on to barikothi.com. That's our website. You have all the information there. We have to you in order to get any kind of pricing details, you have to drop in an email. All those details are on our website because we have to understand what itinerary you want, what kind of a guest you are, where you're traveling. So there are multiple questions that we have to interact with you for. Once we get to know that, we get out those rates. So everything's easily available on the website. And of course, we've got a helpline number where you're always free to make that call and get more details.
All right, thank you. So I think now we can maybe take up a couple of questions that have come in from our viewers. So somebody asks, what are the indoor activities that you have at Bari Koti?
So we've got multiple indoor activities. We do a lot of cuisine related activities. We do classes, cooking classes that we organize. Apart from that, we've got a lot of storytelling activities that we do indoors. But our entire 3 night experience is broken down into an hour 2 hour itinerary, where a lot of indoor activity and outdoor activities are a part of it. We have a lot of cultural activities that we do. Rai Beshi dance form, 500-year-old martial art based dance form. We put that onto display. Baul artists from Jiaganj, which is across the river. We get these humble Baul artists who come in and we tell the story of Baul. So a lot of cultural activities and other, and you can get all of that information in detail if I've missed any at our website also.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rashmi.
All right. So now we have another question. This is a very interesting question, actually. What is the architecture that of a typical Rajasthani Haveli?
Thank you, Madhu, for the question. Well, it is. We've got a Gaddi Ghar, which is absolute. So I'm not looking at that word architecture in the sort of macroscopic point of view, but I'm just going in terms of intent. So we've got a Gaddi Ghar, which you'll find in every Rajasthani Haveli. You've got that little place on top of the Gaddi Ghar where the women, because of the parda system, are sitting over there looking at the men working because they're training on the job. So we have all of that. Um, Strikingly, exactly opposite that particular Gaddi Ghar, you've got the Durbar Hall, which is a whole British royal hall. The moment you look down onto the courtyard that separates both these rooms, you've got Greek columns. So I don't know if I would like to call it a Rajasthani Haveli
Yeah.
because it is a Sheherwali Haveli, which is a beautiful mix of all of that. My personal favorite is the Singhi Kothi, which is my aunt's house, and hopefully, God willing, that will be our next project. And my cousins there, Tushar and Tuhin, were the founding pillars also of this Bari Kothi project. If you see their house, Singhi Koti, and you can Google this and see this, is this a Rajasthani Haveli? It looks like a beautiful Roman palace. So I don't know. These are not Havelis in its truest form. These are Sheherwali Havelis.
Yeah, and I think also one thing that I would like to add is the fact that most of these houses have courtyards. Now, the courtyard is not just subject to buildings back in, say, Rajasthan. The courtyard dwelling itself is actually something that you see all across India. You see it in the West, in Rajasthan and Gujarat. You
Mm.
see it in Bengal. You see it all over West Bengal, actually. You see it down south in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. You see it even in the Havelis in Delhi. So the courtyard building type itself cannot particularly be put down to one region, simply because it works so well within the Indian climate. And so I think this is a tying factor between the different styles. It's basically just the aesthetics. And as you mentioned, of course, it is, I think the best way to put it across would be to say it is a Sheherwali Haveli, because the term Sheherwali itself encapsulates, different influences from different regions
That's
and
correct.
different communities. So yeah.
I'm just, Anmol, you again
Yeah.
touched a chord when you said about courtyards. So back in what I understand from superiors in my family, the social fabric, and this is a story important and interesting. So houses in Havelis in that part of the world didn't get measured in square feet, or it didn't get measured. They said आपका घर कितना बड़ा है. You don't say 10,000 square feet. You say,
Yes.
oh, Bari Kothi is पाँच चौक, पाँच आठ चौक, or they say पाँच आंगन, meaning the courtyards were
Yeah.
used as a sign of signifying how big your house is. And why is that? Because possibly while you make a courtyard, you end up wasting the maximum amount of space. So I've strongly led to believe that this was a way of being opulent about the fact that I have 8 courtyards. That means
Yes.
I have such big a house that I could afford wasting so much of space. So
Yeah.
that, all of these are beautiful. And when you spoke about different influences in architecture, I forgot to mention, where in the world would you get Jain mandirs with Mughal architecture? Now I can't, like, I get goosebumps even talking about it. That it is just magnificent. The
Yeah.
storytelling, the sheer storytelling is extremely powerful. Sorry,
Yes, definitely.
as I said, you'll have to take control of the questions. I can keep talking about this for
No, no,
hours.
no, not at all. I think those are some of the main questions from our end. So, is there anything that you would like to add? Because we have hit the 1 hour mark, so I wouldn't want to keep you for longer. So, is there anything that you would like to add, just to our viewers to end with?
No, I would more than for the viewers. I would love to know a little bit more, and I would like people to know more of the work that you guys are doing. It'll be great, and that just again, will refire that thought process of how we could work together in getting Murshidabad back, to its former glory to the extent possible.
Yes.
So just help me with a little bit of what work are you doing in Murshidabad
Yes.
also?
All right. So, of course, as you must be aware, we do run walking tours in Kolkata. We do have one tour that also goes to the other colonies, which are Shirampur, Chandanagar, Chinchura, and all of that. We were at Murshidabad in October. We primarily went there to conduct some documentation on, say, the main city itself in Murshidabad, because we were planning to come up with a tour in Murshidabad. And as I mentioned, unfortunately, we were not able to make it to Azimganj, but we did manage to visit Jiaganj and Qasim Bazar as well. So in Qasim Bazar, we visited the Qasim Bazar Rajpadi, or the Palace of the Roys.
Right.
And they have also managed to convert a part of it into a guest house of sorts. So they are also trying to venture into the hospitality business and open up their space to, allow people to come in and stay there. So we were primarily there for that. And basically, with what has happened now with the global pandemic, is, of course, we have had to halt our operations. But the HWC live stream is one of the many ways in which we are kind of trying to keep that interaction going with our followers, and just to kind of keep the conversation going. And what we do see ourselves doing in the near future is, we definitely want to develop more tourist circuits within West Bengal, because unfortunately what will happen is, people will be a little wary about travel, at least for a little while.
Mm.
And they will mainly want to focus on domestic travel. So,
mm,
how do we make these destinations, how do we entice the local people to actually visit these destinations? Because oftentimes what happens is, staying in West Bengal, you would not want to go to a different part of West Bengal. Maybe you
mm,
would say, okay, if you have time for a weekend, maybe for a weekend getaway, you would maybe want to go to, say, Digha, Mandarmuni, or, go down to Darjeeling for a couple of nights or something like that. But that's pretty much about it. And it's more of, it's people would rather go to another part of the country rather than explore their own confines. So I think that is something that we want to work towards, and especially trying to find out where, at different properties such as yours, where they have set up, so that we can develop the areas around them. Because with these properties, you see, a part of the infrastructure is already in place. There is already a place for people to go, and a place for them to have one sort of an experience. So how do we build on that experience? So that is
mm.
something that we are looking to do in the near future. And
So
we
let's discuss this further because we've also, we've come out with this product called the Story of Bengal, where we are tying in Glenburn, Penthouse, Rajbari, Bawali, and Bari Kothi at Murshidabad, all stitched together, giving three different experiences.
Yeah.
And while we are doing this, as you mentioned, we've the names Shirampur and Chinsura.
Yes.
Where else in the world would you have eight different colonies in a span of what, 100 kilometers radius? Like it is just mind blowing, and we are just sitting not being able to showcase that asset to the world. I
Yes.
Chandanagar, I believe, still but till a long time, I don't know if it still exists or not, but had their school curriculum in French. More than Bangla, there was more in French. Like that is absolutely fascinating, and to integrate with associations such as yourself, where we can stitch that together for a, because any person coming in, and if they get offered this 10-night itinerary where they can actually be in Calcutta, started, do North Calcutta, understand the stories of what went down in the past, and then you link that with the Shirampur, you do it along with maybe a Bandel, and you go up all the way Shantiniketan, Murshidabad. You stitch all of that together, and all of those itineraries, by the way, are on our website. And I'll definitely, after this session, I'm intrigued to let's we have to have a way of working together to be able to, because we're doing exactly the same thing in different ways. And the good thing is,
Yes.
I'm doing this and you're doing that, and if that put together is a product, so that's
Definitely, yes. Yes. And I think that that's usually what I've seen in happening in West Bengal, is that there are a lot of different entities and a lot of different organizations working towards similar things, but unfortunately not working together. So I
right.
think if we can come up with an ecosystem where we have people from different backgrounds trying to put things together, then I think that will give tourists a more wholesome experience, and it will offer a much better experience as such, because you have people coming in from you know absolutely varied backgrounds. So you're getting
Right.
different viewpoints from different people. So definitely,
Hmm.
I think we would definitely love to take this up, and then maybe we can see, what we can do not only for Murshidabad but all of West Bengal for that matter.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Thank
yeah,
you,
so
Anmol.
I think
Thank you for having me. More importantly,
no,
and
thank you so much
thank
for
you for
joining
spreading
us.
the word for
Yes,
for what we are doing, because it's a humble beginning. And our architect is back in Canada now, partner in crime, so to say. So I'm waiting for him also to get back. We'd love to get our hands dirty with other projects. We are fairly
yes,
confident this will work. It'll take some time, of course, and with all of this pandemic, it'll take some time. But all of us will
yes,
evolve. We just have to go through the hard parts. But
of
that's again,
course.
that's what makes it a journey, right? So
Yeah,
thank you so much, Anmol, for having me.
thank
And
you so
the
much
storm
for
slowly
joining
calmed down.
us.
So I think the storm came
Yes,
literally just for our session.
just
So I
in
think it
time.
was
Yes,
lightningly
yes.
wonderful, if I may use that word. So thank you again,
So
Anmol.
thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our viewers as well who have joined us and who will be watching this broadcast later at their convenience. So I would just like to end with saying that if you would like any further information on Bari Kothi, of course you can visit their website, which is barikothi.com, and they are also active on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram under the handle Bari Kothi. So anything at all, you can follow them on social media, and they do have quite a good website, because I have looked at it myself and it does give a lot of information. So for anyone looking
Thank you.
to visit the place or to opt in for one of the experiences, just have a look at their website and then you can reach out to them. And again, thank you so much, Darshan, for joining us. It was absolutely wonderful speaking with you, and definitely hope to work with you in the near future. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anmol.
all right, thank you
Regards
so much.
to
Thank
Chelsea
you.
and Photographer. Take care.
Yes.
See you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.